Hello, welcome to the Struggle Bus. My name is Nolafis, and today I'm not alone. Invited a special guest to talk about building transitional maps. And Squeagle, do you want to say hi?
Hi, hi.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this episode because I think transitional is just like tech. There's a reason that tech was the first kind of like video I made on this series, and but there's also a reason transitional was the second one I wanted to do, and that's because I think it's a really important map style to kind of get an idea around. If you want to start like really going into Trackmania map building and all that stuff, just because it's so versatile and you can do with everything. But before we talk too much about that, in case viewers don't know, Squeagle, why don't we talk about you a little bit? I know you're pretty prominent in the community, but in case people, I don't know, haven't heard of you or played any of your several maps, how long have you been playing Trackmania? A little bit of backstory.
Yeah, I have been playing for ages. I started with a demo of Trackmania Original, which was, I don't know, 2006, 7 or so.
Oh wow.
Quite a while back, and then spent the majority of my first time playing Trackmania basically in Trackmania United until like I don't know 2011, 12 or so.
Mm-hmm.
Then had a brief comeback for Trackmania Canyon, where I also changed my name to Squeagle first. Back then, I was known under Fun Trackers Torque. Don't know if anybody knows this name. But yeah, then had another break as I feel like popularity in Trackmania has fallen off in a period there between 2015 and basically the release of TM 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And yeah, then heard that this game is a thing, picked it up and played ever since. And I don't know, it's interesting how it just feels in most cases like the game of my childhood, which is nice.
Yeah, that's actually really nice. It's actually quite a few people have seemed to like, oh, I played Trackmania when I was a kid, and then heard TM 2020, so I picked it back up, and I've been playing ever since.
Yeah, I had the same expectation or hope with Trackmania Turbo when this got released, but somehow I downloaded the demo or download the game, maybe paid for the game, I don't know, and played it one evening, noticed that it's just something was off. I don't know. I just never played it longer than this one evening. I think it was really a pain to get into online play or so back then because I started with a friend who I was also playing Trackmania with in 2008. So it kind of got picked up and dropped in the same instance. But 2020 was different. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We've all we've stuck around, so yeah, it's I don't know. I've been enjoying my time with 2020, but I guess I mean I guess like the main reason that you're here is when did you get started with mapping? Have you always built maps, or is this kind of more of a recent thing with 2020?
I kind of always built maps, yes. Back then, we at home we didn't have internet, so there was no online play or playing anything outside the campaign. I was like kinda it felt illegal at least downloading tracks like just sorted by awards from TMX back then, and then fill up my USB stick with as much stuff I could download in a reasonable amount of time. And then I don't know, played like those 20 tracks or so. But after finishing those, I was just left there being stuck with nothing. So I started the editor.
Oh wow, that
And
felt
yeah,
illegal.
it felt illegal because the teacher mustn't see that you're on Trackmania Exchange.
Oh
At
yeah.
attention, you know.
So
Maybe we
young.
even snuck into the computer cabinets back then.
Oh wow. So young, already turning to a life of crime.
hmm
Mm-hmm.
I
But that
mean, all for the Trackmania career, you
yeah.
know.
But I mean that's actually really cool that you like snuck it in school and to get like your thumb drives full of like the maps that you wanted. That's really cool.
Yeah, and also I mean, I was able to finish maps, but what did not change until until today was that I'm just a horrible driver. You know, I'm good enough at some point to drive my own maps reasonably well, but I'm just not a good driver at all. In Trackmania United I only played stunt, like all day online stunt servers, nothing else, and then went back to editor and edited maps, like race maps for for some reason, not stunt maps. But yeah, I was really a good stunt driver, but horrible at time attack driving, and somewhat good at transitional map creation back then. But
So,
yeah, so and this is why I'm still a bit mad about one of the recent Trackmania updates where stunt got introduced, but it's just bad, you
I
know.
was just about to ask about that, but it doesn't scratch the same itch.
Not at all. It did when it got announced. I was like, holy shit! I can fulfill my childhood dream of building nice maps and playing stunt online again. And then, yeah, I mean, yeah, it didn't turn out this way, unfortunately. Still hoping it will, but right now it does not feel meaningful in any way. So I have
Yeah.
not played it since it got released in 2020.
Is it bad that I haven't played it at all? Like,
In the
I,
current form, no, not at all. And I mean, I don't even know if it's good or if it's like a competitive mode or anything that would be fun for people who have not spent their entire childhood trying to perfect it. You know,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's just for nostalgia and memories. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it got introduced when I was like not really playing Trackmania super heavily. I think because I mean, everyone goes through phases on whether or not like, oh, you're playing Trackmania all day, every day, or just like every once in a while or whatever. But I think it got released during one of the phases where I wasn't playing as much, and then once I started playing again more, no one ever talked about it anymore. It just didn't seem super relevant to anything, and so I never got around to actually trying around stunt.
Yeah, don't bother. It was already very niche, but it's also badly executed in my opinion. So
Oh no.
it's a very niche game style, not being done very well. So
But actually,
uh,
one thing that you did bring up, like, because with stunt, a lot of it is like with airtime trying to land, like tricks smoothly and stuff. Is that correct?
yes,
Okay, because
kind of.
I'm wondering if there might be a little bit of a crossover with like the airtime trying to get these tricks, landing it smooth, and transitional, where you have some of these elements you're trying to
Nice
land them
segue
smooth. Well, no,
there.
it's like it's actually something as you were talking about it, I was like, I wonder if like is transitional just the racing version of stunt? Like what? Like is there? I don't know. I don't know if it's actually something there. Or if I'm just being crazy.
For me, it does not feel like it. There might be a connection. I mean, it might tickle the same spot in my brain somehow, but I didn't see the connection until now.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I'm a little crazy, but you know what? Aren't we all? So. But so you've talked about transitional. But are there any other styles that you really like? Find yourself mapping?
I mean, Recently, I got into the most untransitional of all styles, which is NASCAR.
Oh,
At
really?
least until now, it is untransitional or has no transitions.
All right. Well, that's about to
Uh,
change.
Maybe, I don't know. There is still some innovation to be had.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. I think. I mean, transitional is just a style that still can, where you can still fit in most other racing or building styles in Trackmania. You can build transitional tech. You can build transitional dirt. I don't know. It's still pretty versatile in that way.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
in general, I like transitional, although it's not that limiting in itself.
Yeah, and like I said during the intro, that is why I wanted to talk about transitional so early on in the series, is because yeah, it is what definitely, I think it's transitional and tech that are really the two styles that if you can get good at building those, then it opens up so much in terms of just building like uh, I always struggle to say this because I don't want to just say, oh, higher quality, as if like, oh, if you don't build, if there aren't transitions in your maps, then your map is awful. But like when you typically
Speaking of
think of
NASCAR,
like competitive maps or like maps that are you want to be taken really seriously, like the elements you see the most are transitions and drifts. So
yeah.
I, yeah. So I think if someone is wanting to get into that more competitive world, I think learning how to build tech and transitional are the two probably best starting points for that.
Mhm. I think a good starting point is also becoming a driver, not only in stunt, but actually a good driver,
uh
or just playing maps because you will know what just feels right. I think transitional just makes it spices things up. Of course, there's time to be gained, and there are like it's important how you take transitions, but for me, it's also just it's more fun. It makes it more interesting.
yeah, and I think that's a really good point because I know I brought up in a previous video um where transitions are really good to add to kind of styles that have, like, I guess more of like a boring reputation. Like I know grass is as a style, like what every single time there's a grass track of the day and you look at like a Twitch chat or something, it's just people spamming like the bedge emoji or bedge reaction and then just like complaining about another grass track of the day and how boring it is, even though the last one was like 3 months ago. But yes, but if you add like transitions and stuff to it, it can actually make it like a lot more engaging, and I think people like that a lot
Yes. I feel like that when you're like watching your favorite Twitch streamers, you need to know that you're watching the top 0.1% of skill or something. For them, grass, of course, is super boring. It's pretty straightforward, But for them, even a well-calculated good speed tech map or a tech map is probably not that interesting because they are just really good at the game and want to have tracks that are a bit off the meta or have features where you can actually gain time by driving better. And the grass track of the days also sometimes have a diff 1 cutoff or like a time difference between first and 64th place of 0.2 or so. It's just very quick to optimize those tracks. And I
yeah.
think transitions sometimes don't even change that in the typical track of the day format. They are they sometimes get thrown in to make it a bit more visually appealing, to have the car move around on another axis, make, I don't know, maybe have a little trick for reducing airtime here and there. But they're still they're still a grass track. They're still somewhat easy and approachable. But people who are maybe in Div 5 or below or something, they will probably enjoy it. It's a bit of, you're kind of biased to the really hard tracks that all the streamers enjoy to actually being good. Not every good track is a world tour comp map.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think it is like important that, even if especially in track of the day, you want that variety of just like, oh, sometimes you do get the more world tour inspired comp maps, but sometimes you just get a chill Gear 4 grass map, that you just chill, drive, even if the streamers might not like it too much.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess starting the actual discussion about transitional, what would you say how would you define transitional? Maybe not the easiest question, but if someone is just new to the game, how would you define it?
You have like those pieces in the editor that is just a one block transition from like platform road to dirt. This to me is not really a transition. This is like, I guess it's a transition, but for me it involves transitioning between two blocks that are not connectable. That just there's a way where you can go from block A to block B that is not predefined by the game.
Yeah,
I would say something like this.
yeah, I think that's pretty fair. And I think oftentimes they feature at least like a little bit of airtime, just because if the blocks don't fit together, you're probably gonna have to throw the car up in the air to change the surface underneath for a split second.
Yes, there's a bit of airtime, and there's also they're pretty restricted, or depending on which transition, but they are somewhat restricted in the way where the transition works.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the flat sausage to quarter pipe transition, which is a very common, basically no airtime transition, which I would still define as a transition, only works on like the left or right side, depending how which direction you build it in.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side, you will just crash against the quarter pipe. So it's restricted to a section of the block where it works.
Yeah, and I guess it's just just like changing surfaces or even angles where like the game doesn't necessarily have just a base vanilla block, or even if you just want to change it, because sometimes those vanilla blocks are a little boring. You can spice things up, make it make it more interesting. But I
Yep.
guess so. If that's like transitional, what's a transitional map? So, like, in terms of just like, so you can just put those transitions in any map, but what's the difference between like a tech map and a transitional tech map?
I think it's just this having transitions between your tech elements. I think the baseline for a good map is a map that would work even without the transitions. You need, for example, for tech, you need enough space and well-defined apexes for the drift to work, and enough space between the exit of drift A to the entry of drift B to work. And
Mm-hmm.
making it transitional is just basically throwing in more interesting surface or height changes between the drifts. I think on a transitional tech map, the tech aspect will, I think, in 99% of the courses still stay the same, and the transition happens between them. and I think this can make this transitional. It's a bit harder when you do. I think it's even way harder in tech for some slidey surfaces. It might work better to have the transition in the turn itself.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, and also what I think would work best for people just starting building transitional is trying to fit in transitions between your elements.
Yeah, and I think that is a good point to start making them as well. And I think it really is just any map that just has like that extra little focus on the transitions, because if you just have one or two, I don't think that would really make it transitional. But once you start getting to like the 3, 4, 5 range where it's like a reoccurring thing on the map instead of just like one corner or space, then yeah, you definitely start getting into that actual transitional territory, which kind of begs the question of like how if you're making these transitions, how do you know if they're good?
Uh, good question.
Yeah.
What just came into my mind about transitional maps? I think one key aspect between a map with some transitions and a transitional map is probably also the way or how much time can you actually gain by driving the transitions. Like
Mm-hmm.
the transition that we just spoke about, the sausage to quarter pipe transition, there is basically no way to drive this faster or slower. It's just there. And you are basically driving it like the vanilla block road to dirt. It's like, yeah, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Although the vanilla road to dirt actually has some more interesting elements because you will get airtime when you stay in the middle. So trying to stay on the outside there will save you time because you will reduce airtime. And maybe this is the case for most of the transitional maps, that if you have a good understanding of how the transitions work, how you can try to push reducing the airtime, how to get an even better setup by pushing the edges of where the transition works, you will be able to save time. And by having this part of the map play a non-zero role of how much time you can gain in the track itself in the whole, this contributes to how transitional the map is, you could say.
Yeah, I
Like, for
guess.
example, having a full platform tech map it's like only the drifts that count.
Mm-hmm.
Having a jump in between where you can reduce airtime by jumping diagonal or do a little ramp cut, that's a small trick that can save you time, can reduce your airtime and make it, I guess, make the map more transitional in its core.
Yeah, that's a really good point where it's not just like the transition isn't something that you just drive and try not to crash through. It's something that you have to actively think about to get like a better time and stuff at the
Yeah.
end. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that like I think for like someone looking to build a quote unquote good transitional map and stuff, I think that is actually something that's really important to think about is where, because you can just make a bunch of transitions like you said, like the sausage to the quarter pipe and stuff, and you can build a bunch of those, but like what actively thinking about where people are going to gain time, and is this a transition that's going like is it something that's going to make people gain or lose time, or is it just kind of there to make the straightaway a bit more interesting?
Which is also fine. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not everything has to be, like
Yeah, but maybe
just
that's line where you would say it's a transitional map versus a map with transitions.
yeah. I guess that I think that is a good distinction
I
to
think
make.
I think a good example for transitional maps where I don't know anything about basically, but you see it quite often are snow maps, like transitional snow maps.
Oh, mm-hmm.
Like the snow car has such sharp steering that allows you to basically have a transition on each block. So you can have block A to block B to block C and have a transition between each and every one of them because you have so much possibilities with the sharp steering to adjust your car to set up for the next block transition. And since there's okay, I don't know anything about snow car, but I assume there's no braking or releasing. So basically, it's always a full speed map in that sense. You will just snowball every little time gain you have with the transitions. So I think building transitional is especially important for like the old cars or for snow car especially. But the same principles still apply to Stadium.
Yeah, with snow cars specifically, because I think transitional snow car is kind of like the main style. Like if you play a snow car map, I'd probably say about 9 times out of 10 you'll get a transitional snow car map, and I've built a couple of them, and yeah, it's basically uh turns, because turning sharply slows the snow car down. So typically, yeah, like you said, you don't have to release or press brake or anything, and it is where you take the turns to control the speed of the car, and then the transitions to help carry I guess like more speed. Because if you get that extra air time, then the snow car isn't gonna obviously go as fast. It's not on the ground accelerating. So the transitions kind of like determine how fast you're going, and the turns
Mm-hmm.
more snowball, as well as some speed control throughout there. But snow car's pretty slow, so you don't typically you don't have to worry about that too much.
Yeah.
And then you get the sadistic people who build plastic no slide snow car maps, and I don't play those. I am not good at
Yeah.
smooth steering. That is no absolutely not.
Oh, I think I see Granadi smiling outside my window.
Yeah, oh no. No, wait, we mentioned snow car, he found us.
Yeah. It's funny because he actually could be outside my window smiling because he lives in the same city.
Oh wow. Oh, he really could be actually.
He could be. I never know.
A little bit of a tangent, but I tried what I call the Dark Kirby challenge, who's another user who kind of tried this challenge of getting track of the day by basically putting every single TMX style into a random picker, like selector, and he spun the wheel. Or maybe you spin the wheel twice, and whatever two styles it lands on, you have to build it and try to get track of the day with it. And I
Mm,
I tried that because it sounds fun. Why not? And
it does.
I ended up getting water and snow car as my combination, and I was like, what on earth am I going to do with this? And I built it, and it legit turned into probably one of, if not my favorite map I've ever built. I legit, like, if I were trying out for Waypoint or like a mapping team or whatever, and they're like, all right, submit a map that you think is like best showcases, I would submit my water snow car map. I called it Don't Slip and Slide. And it's and the reason why I bring it up is because it has like a lot of transitions and stuff with it. But you know what? I'm proud of that map, and I wanted to talk about it because I think it's good. And it got reviewed by Nadeo. I actually got a water snow car map through map review, reviewed by Nadeo, and then it was rejected. But for the podium sequence, I yeah, the camera on the podium, and I added the text, "Congrats, Grenady. We knew you could do it." Or no, it was, "Congrats, Grenady. Yo mama would be so proud." And
It's funny. I mean, we don't really know how it works on the Deus end, but I imagine they have a way of filtering the styles and just looking. Is there a non-dirt track that I could feature? I
mhm.
bet Phoebe would have been very confused seeing why is snow car plus water a thing.
I think two thoughts would be like, what water snow car? And also, why does this have a 4.7 rating in map review? Like, what? 'Cause,
Yeah.
I was expecting, honestly, I was expecting a bunch of 1 stars, but no, I did
Yeah,
such a
sometimes
good job.
sometimes stuff works, yeah.
Yeah,
And
sometimes.
this is honestly a nice I bet it was a nice experience for you, like exploring different possibilities where you didn't know the solution before.
Yeah,
Like building a Gear 4 transitional dirt map, you have like I don't know, hundreds of really good maps that execute the theme already. You almost cannot innovate in like the standard transitions. It's almost everything has been done in some way.
mhm.
It's so yeah, it's hard to find new stuff there. But the water snow car, there's still a lot to be explored. You know.
It works. Well, at least for me. And also, I think the fact that I can't really smooth steer meant that I didn't build elements that required smooth steering, so it
Yeah, I mean that
worked.
works. Works.
Yeah, so but that's actually a really good point that you bring up with the how many transitional maps there are and like how you can look and like look at what other people are doing to kind of help along with that. Because I think the hardest part, or at least I remember back when I was trying to learn how to build transitional, because I think I started looking at it because I felt like my maps were kind of boring in a way, or like more plain, where if you just use the vanilla transitions, then you just kind of get the feeling that, I don't know, like you've seen this stuff before.
Hmm.
Whereas I think with transitional, it's a really good way to kind of add, like we talked about before, that extra little bit of excitement, that extra little bit of like, oh, of like intrigue. So it's not just the base vanilla blocks being intentionally used as what they were made for 100% of the time. Uh, but in terms of getting started with that, I really struggled. But I think what you just mentioned of like looking at other people's maps and like the transitions that they have built is actually a really good starting point. I,
It probably is. I mean, objectively, I think it is, but it depends what you get from playing Trackmania, I guess. Like for me, uh, like placing a start block and then having 4 to 5 hours of trying to place the second block until you eventually run into a transition that you have not seen before and kinda kinda works is what I played for. It's just a puzzle where finding the correct piece or finding the solution by yourself without looking up a transition database or just copying what others have built is what brings me joy and makes me go, oh, sick.
yeah.
That's sick. I did this. No, I
Oh.
did this. I did not copy it. I feel like it came from within me. It's so satisfying. But I guess if you have a good understanding of what's a good map, and want to start getting into building transitional, it helps knowing the basic transitions. Um, like for example, sloped platform or banked platform into road dirt. This works. This is a nice transition that you can use, but it does not feel special. It's so well known. Everybody has played at least 1,000 maps featuring this transition.
Mm-hmm.
But the first moment where I built it myself, I think I have not seen it before. I just randomly clicked on blocks and clicked combinations, and I saw that it worked. It was so satisfying. I
Mm-hmm.
know I was not the first one. I know that maps have existed. Maybe I've even played one map that used this before. But in this moment, it felt like I discovered this, and it was so satisfying.
Yeah, and I think because now that I've built a few like transitional maps and gotten the feel of like what works, what doesn't. Yeah, now I 100% do. I'll only go out and look if I'm just like 100% stuck on something, and I'm just like, okay, I
Mhm.
literally have no idea what to do. But yeah, just the trial and error. And I think what a lot of people kind of focus on is it's really easy to take a look at the final product and just be like, wow, how on earth did you come up with that transition? You're like, just how did you come up with that stuff? And then it's because you see the final product, but you don't see, like you said, the 4 straight hours of just placing and deleting and just be like, no, no, that doesn't work. You know, so and I think, well, I guess another question is, so now that you've been building transitional maps for a while, when you're building, I guess when you look at building a transition now, do you pretty much know what you want right away, or how much experimentation do you find yourself doing now?
I don't. I have no idea what I want to do. Like basically never. Like people have contacted me in the past with inquiries about a competition map or like a special map for a certain event. That is also tied to a deadline, which are two things that I don't really like. Like don't want to build only this style for this event, and I also really, really don't want to have a deadline. And
Mm,
just having the freedom of basically unlimited time because it's just a private project just for yourself, and not feeling the restriction of, is this a Gear 4 dirt map or is it a backwards RPG? I don't know. Let's see. Makes it more interesting for me.
okay,
So I don't really know what I want to.
okay, so you have much more of like a free form attempt. So I mean, I guess when you build like just build a map for yourself, no deadline, for anything. Uh do you, I guess, like, do you have an idea of what you want kind of beforehand, or do you just kind of sit down and just be like, let's see what comes of this?
Yeah, I don't have a plan. I just build and see where I get to. I think most of my maps just go towards some kind of mid-speed mixed-ish map.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it's still so broad that I try to build interesting stuff. And for me, having done a certain style, um, just increases the likelihood of building something else next time because I just want to learn doing stuff that I have not done before. Like for example, the last map that will get released soon. When you guys hear this, may have been released already. I
Ooh.
tried to incorporate gear downs, which I have not done before because I am not a good driver. Calculating gear downs is hard for me, or was hard for me. I needed a bit of help. But it's just a thing that I found interesting. How to build a gear down? Let's try to build a gear down. And yeah, this is stuff I find interesting. That's also kind of how I diverged into building NASCAR because this is like, I think, almost the furthest away from my usual style, which was basically exclusively transitional Gear 4 dirt. And then
Hmm.
having like 600 plus speed, no transitions, only platform, no other element than releasing and steering. It's very different. But it's very interesting to try to make that work as well.
Yeah, and I think especially with NASCAR, there probably is quite a bit of room to experiment with adding like those transitions and just like kind of taking the stuff that you've learned outside of NASCAR and bringing it in, because I do think NASCAR is quite, I guess, like the underrated, underbuilt style. You don't see it very often. And granted, yeah, it's not my favorite style. NASCAR is super punishing, but I think it is like I said, you hardly ever see it. So I think there's a lot of space to play with what it
Yes,
means to be a NASCAR map and pushing that boundary as far
I,
as
I
where
can
it'll
really,
go.
yeah, I can really see why people don't enjoy playing NASCAR, and I kind of feel the same at some points as well. But building NASCAR is super fun. I mean, if you have not uh, given NASCAR a shot, building it, do it. It's super interesting. And it also it kind of goes back into building transitional again for me because in order to have a good transitional map, you need to have the base foundation of your map uh, work well already. And in Nesca, you cannot do fancy stuff with interesting transitions, or I guess you can. I did not so far. So you need really well constructed turns and well constructed exits, entries, and apexes, and all of that.
Yeah.
And I think having built two pretty big projects in the NASCAR style so far has I learned stuff for building transitional through that by just knowing how to really construct a turn that is not just a 180 that when looking from above your map ends up as a snake. I have quite a few of maps that when you just cam 7 above, it's just a long snake of 180 turns. And this is, I mean, it works, but it's also not that interesting, I guess. And this is probably the thing I wanted to change the most while I was trying to build NASCAR is how can I include 90-degree or 270-degree turns into the flow of the map um, that that make it from a playing aspect way more interesting than having a smooth transition that works every time in between.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just learning the stuff and using it in your future project makes them better as well. So
Yeah, and I think
by
that
building the most
like
untransitional style, I learned how to build transitional, I guess.
mm-hmm. And I think that yeah, like honestly for I think just for everyone, if you really want to kind of like expand your mapping horizons or whatever, really just going for something that you've never really thought about building before is probably the best way to do it.
Yeah,
Uh
it probably works for every aspect in life, no?
yeah,
just,
okay, yeah, that's fair.
just doing stuff that's new, letting your brain do something else than what it has always been done.
Mhm. Mhm.
And yeah, it's not that you cannot, you won't expect how much you will learn by doing stuff you are not good at yet.
Yeah, cuz I mean, I know quite a while ago, especially when I messaged you to see if you're interested in doing this. My previous message to you, I don't even know how far back it was, but it was literally just me asking you for help with how to build transitional stuff because I had no idea how to do it. But eventually you figure it out, and then like now I can actually build transitions without having to go to Squeagle for help.
But yeah, you, the Trackmania community in general is pretty welcoming and super nice. So
Hmm.
just asking people for feedback is always good. And there are a lot of really experienced people who will gladly offer their help for questions.
Yeah, which I guess so if when you're looking at a transition or when you're like playing building a map, building a transition and stuff like that, uh obviously it depends on like the speed, what kind of element you're looking for with this kind of stuff, but as general rule of thumb, what makes a transition good, one that you're happy with?
I mean, it's a lot about feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's good when you feel that it's good. I think I cannot specify it more, but this is what I go by. Sometimes in this 4 to 5 hours where you are stuck placing a single block, you have an idea in your mind. I am here and I somehow want to go there-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And then you experiment. Does this turn work? No. Does this turn work? Maybe a sausage turn. A wall ride. And after a while, you will find one block and you will feel like, yes, that's it. And for me, it's most of the time that in those cases it works at the first attempt. When I just turn right and jump off and I want to land and wow, this was so smooth. Holy shit. What the fuck? I just built something that I didn't expect to work and it worked the first time. When I have this feeling, I know it's good. And then it just needs to hold on the next 20 to 30 attempts where I try it. And if I still can get it almost every time and it feels reproducible and still feels good, and it was not a one-off, it can stay, maybe. but usually I just know when it works because you feel like, oh yes, this feels good. But it's hard to tell, I guess. I mean, objectively, I guess it's a good transition if it's not annoyingly clippable. It's not ultra precise in the way you enter the block. It works at various amounts of speeds. You can drive it in a way that saves time. You can kind of risk it to save even more time. It also works for Div 30 who plays with their eyes closed, I guess, and somehow just stumbles across the transition. Those checkboxes also need to be checked, but for me, what makes a good transition is the first attempt, this feeling. And if it is, then it's a good transition.
Yeah, it's actually a really interesting point that you bring up, that it works like the first time, because now that I think about it, a lot of the transitions, I'll like build something, I'll be like, this probably isn't gonna work, but whatever, I guess I'll try it. And I drive it, and I'm like, that worked. Hold on. And then, like you said, you drive it 20, 30 more times.
Yeah, I guess more like 100, but yeah.
Yeah. I guess with my videos, some or the videos that I've done where I just like fast forward through like a building process or something, I do end up cutting out a lot of my play testing, because looking back, I'm like, wow, I drive a lot. I don't build. Like, it's probably honestly like 80% driving, 20% building or something like that. Where but another point I kind of wanted to bring up, when you said that you got to make sure that it feels good. Yeah, like that's really vague, but at the same time, like, I think pretty much everyone knows that feeling, or at least with the viewer map review that I do. Viewer map review, where oftentimes if I point out something where I'm just like, hey, this specific thing, like this right here, this feels awkward or off or whatever, if the person is like in the stream or whatever, oftentimes they'll respond like, yeah, I was thinking about that. Yeah, and it was one of the things that I was kind of like waiting to see if someone else would notice it or whatever. And I think the better you get at mapping, like the more you listen to kind of like that voice of just like, this feels awkward, or like, I guess like the more you feel like you can trust that voice in determining whether or not something is actually good or not. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Okay, good.
And for me, it's also kind of the other way around. Also, because I know I'm just not a good driver, so I'm biased towards good people will have 20 more speed here. So I try to hunt the last checkpoint until I feel this is the max I can do. This is probably close to the max that is possible here. Does it still feel good?
Mm-hmm.
And most of the transitions kind of fall apart at this. What if I really want to max it? What is the world record line here? At this point, most of the stuff I build just gets deleted because, yeah, I mean, it kind of works if you drive like here-ish, but yeah, this is not good enough. at least for me, it kind of needs to work for everybody, especially for the really fast players. I feel like, and this kind of destroys some of the ideas in the end. But it's good to listen to advice still because it makes you better at building.
Yeah, and I think that's something a lot of people don't really realize at the start, is that even like once you get, I guess, like better, more comfortable building maps, stuff like that, like the build and delete phase, that does not go away. If anything, that gets
No,
more prominent as you go. Like you have to build and delete. Like there's no way around it. Like you can't just, like, I don't know, maybe if you're the Carl Jr. of map building or whatever, you can just build something and it's perfect. But no.
yeah, I bet also Vixar deletes stuff.
Yeah. Ooh. Do you think Vixa's unbound the delete key? Just, they don't need it.
I mean, I mean, not sure if I should say this here. I'm not sure if Pixar knows there's a delete key. Sometimes it's crazy how little shortcuts this guy knows.
Oh no. But actually that would be a really, I say interesting, probably awful building challenge of you can't delete. Oh
Uh,
no. That sounds awful.
I mean, that also sounds a bit boring, no? Because if you wanna be good at the challenge, you just build safe, you know? You build stuff that you know will work. But I think doing, the most interesting point of building transitional is just doing weird stuff that looks off, that just looks awkward, but you drive it and feel like, huh, this worked perfectly. Wow, it worked again. What the fuck? Like this feeling of you made that weird transition work and it kind of stood the test of all the hours after this of test driving, of trying to max, of trying to be bad at the transition. And it kind of still works. This is so satisfying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just the play testing phase. Also, like, once you're happy with something in the moment, like leaving it for a couple days or so and then coming back to it, and where you kind of forget what your initial thoughts were and then still seeing if it feels good and that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. This is also important because you will always be biased towards. I mean, you will want it to work, so you kind of drive it a bit like, I mean,
Mm,
but
yeah.
it works. You
Yeah.
just can jump off a bit more bit. If you jump in the middle of the block, you won't clip. I can block it. I mean, yeah, it gets awkward, but we can block this as well, and this, and this. Now it works.
Yeah, the better players will probably be able to do it. So, is it really that bad?
Yeah, of course it's a bit bumpy, but I guess it's still funny, no?
Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's that little voice of just like, oh, it's probably good enough.
Yeah.
And it's just,
I just know that in the end, when you found the solution, you know that you found it.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's
Which,
that situation of looking at the solution and thinking, yeah, that was obvious.
mm-hmm,
I once, I don't know, spent like 2-3 hours or so fixing a transition, and I, I don't know, just asked one person, and he told me, yeah, replace that one block from with platform road from dirt, just a platform block instead of a dirt block, and this fixed everything. And it's so obvious in hindsight, and you look at it and it's like this is obviously the solution. Why didn't I find it? But it's not that easy if you don't know the solution, if you're just building into the void. But this is also the interesting aspect of building the transitions, that the void is there and you need to fill it somehow.
I mean, what? Sometimes you just like get inside your own head. You're looking at a specific thing when the solution is like replacing something just outside of that thing or the
Yeah.
lead up to that thing. And then honestly, getting that second opinion is really vital sometimes for just figuring out how to fix something, how to make something better.
Yeah, and maybe counterintuitive to building transitional, I think one of the biggest challenges I had when starting or when trying to get better is trying to not build transitions. It's like a tech. You cannot build a tech turn into the next tech turn. You need a setup phase. You need an apex to aim for, and you need to be able to adjust for a next drift. And the same goes with transitions. I had usually I struggle a lot when placing checkpoints because I don't have one straight piece of road somewhere. It just never happens. And with like items and free blocking, it kind of all works and it is easy. But placing a normal road checkpoint block is almost impossible for me. And I learned to not only have transitions like in your Grenady snow car transitional map. It does not work the same way for Stadium. You need a bit of adjusting. You need a bit of time to reorient yourself, to maybe fix the bumpy landing you had in the transition before to make the next one work again. And so often the solution for building was just give one block more space.
Yeah, and honestly, that's something that I've brought up quite a few times. I think mostly when people are trying to build tech for the first time, but also it definitely pops up every once in a while with like transitional and stuff where people they think like, oh, tech is drifting turns, transitional is transitions. Therefore, everything needs to be a transition. Everything needs to be a drift turn. And it's like, okay, calm down. Like if you drive like a transitional map, you'll notice like there's breathing room. Not everything has like not every turn is a transition. Not every element between those turns is a transition. Like you have to take time to let the player like breathe and like adjust their
Mhm.
line, even if it's just like a small little mental break as you're driving, because it's even like super competitive maps, you know, like Tour is obviously about as intense as it gets, but even just like if you take a step down from there, like even competitive maps have those kind of like not really dead zones, but more of like areas where you don't have to think as hard. You can just take a second, like relax, get ready, gear up for the next section instead of just like
Yeah, and it
transition,
also
transition, transition.
Yeah, and it also rewards the transition you just came from. If you reduce airtime, you will have more speed, and for that speed to pay off, to even make it worth getting more speed, you need a straight, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one point, but I feel like in the building process, I still struggle with building a straight block because yeah, this is, I don't know. I could have built a more interesting block here. I just have a straight here. I just
Yeah,
get
same.
more speed, and it's like, it's a bit boring. But if you place that block coming from a transition, you don't see the next transition already. It's hard to imagine the time you need to adjust. Like example for initializing a drift is you need like 2 blocks or so of setup time for this. But before you build the drift, before you build the transition, those 2 blocks are just PF. They just
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing to do. But even on a straight block where there's I guess nothing happening, you're still doing stuff preparing for the next phase, but you don't see that preparation when you don't have the transition already. So it's kind of hard to do that without knowing what comes ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see why it's hard to build like this, because I struggled with that as well. And usually, while driving, you know your map so well that it works without having those traits. Because I need to jump angled, and then I need to brake, and then I can make the turn, and it all feels super tight, and stuff is happening. And I guess it does, but it does feel even better most of the time when you can land and set up again.
Yeah, I guess it also kind of depends on what you're building for. Whereas, like a quick learn live rounds like track of the day, like you definitely need to take like that setup time into account. Whereas if it's like a hunting competition, then I think you can relax on that. Then it's not so bad if you have the like the rapid fire, as long as everything is still like well calculated and not awkward. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's a time and a place basically for everything. Like literally everything we can say is just like, oh yeah, this except there's always going to be that exception. But let's see. Honestly, I think we've covered quite a bit about like building transitions, how to get them to feel nice. Is there anything you tend to avoid when looking at building transitions, where like from experience you know that's generally not going to work? Because if you need because one thing that I thought of with this is like larger jumps or airtime, where the more time you have in the air, the higher uh
The higher your
what's the
score
word?
in stunt mode will get? Yes,
Yeah, there.
true. Talk about the stunt mode.
There, no, but I guess like the more options or places that players can go, where one tiny little variation at going off the jump can lead to like these large differences in even where you land in doing like larger airtime jumps and stuff like that. And I've found that they're just honestly, I only do small airtime little jumps. Large jumps are like medium jumps, maybe you can get away with it, but large jumps, I just find that the variability of where people are going to go is it's really hard to build something smooth for everyone.
Yeah. If you, the problem with large jumps is also just that they're kind of boring. At least if you've played the map twice already. Like
Mm-hmm.
first time is wee, and the second time it's ooh, I'm jumping, and every time after this is just I'm gonna hold accelerate for 5 seconds, and then what? You know, there's nothing to do. If there's like if it's an interesting release jump or so, maybe, but still then it's I don't know. It kind of breaks the flow of the map. It's most of the time also extremely hard to calculate, especially if you just compare it to 30 to world record line. So where's the landing gonna be? And
Mm-hmm.
this leads to awkward stuff where they are gonna land in this downhill, and for the slower players they are gonna land up here, and then I need like 30 blocks or so for the faster players, and they're gonna land here. And
Mm-hmm.
then thinking about, no, wait, the faster players also want to reduce airtime to land earlier and accelerate earlier, so they're also going to land here. But they're faster, so they're going to bump here. Huh. I don't
Is
know.
is there like a ramp cut that they're gonna try to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, although I think you do have a good example of like maybe not like a super large jump of just like a larger airtime moment though. I think I want to say it was your map Last Light or something where in the beginning there was
Yeah,
kind of
okay.
like a reactor flight. Is that the one that I'm trying to think of?
Yes, but it's also a reactive flight, so you're gonna adjust in the air and prepare for the next turn already. And it also was super scuffed, and there was a trick to it, and this did not turn out as well as I thought, because the first attempt that I played it, it was like, oh, sick. but but yeah, it did not end up working consistently like I wanted it to. But yeah, true. That's a bigger airtime, but
Yeah, because
it's not the typical like booster and ramp and a big void into a landing. It's like
I think the reactor, like you said, added because you can actually adjust in the air and kind of do stuff, but then you open up to like reactor shenanigans, and it gets a little risky at that point. Of
that gets super risky. Yeah, most of the cuts are due to reactors, or at least most reactor maps have cuts because there are reactors with a. We just had this Japski trick of the day. There's a soup. Yeah, guess what? It's
mm-hmm.
faster, and people will just, yeah, I'm gonna release here, and then I get a hover boost here, and guess what? Zero point 0.5 faster or so. It's a bit, yeah, it gets weird, and I feel like reactor it changes the feeling of the car, and it I don't know, I don't really like it because of that. It just feels different.
Mm-hmm.
I may try to explore that a bit more, but somehow it does not feel correct for me.
Yeah, like if I'll typically only use reactors for like small little sections where it, hopefully you can kind of calculate a bit more on like things that can go wrong. But I mean, reactor players, they don't have a life and they're smarter than you, so it's just like it's not a good combination if you're trying to like prevent cuts with
Hmm.
reactors. So it's not fair. It's not
Hmm.
fair. So yeah, honestly, although I think large airtime and maybe like reactor are kind of like the only things that I typically won't even entertain. I won't even build, let alone delete. So
Yeah, and I also try to avoid stuff that's I guess unintuitive. For
mhm.
most of the maps, it's always a good idea to have other people test them, or at least watch other players do their discovery run, because
Mhm.
this is so telling of whether your track works or not. And I had this in the past as well a couple of times where my track, and that's not only the transition, that's the track itself, would work. Um, you just need to jump a bit angled, then you won't
Mhm.
crash. You just need to be a bit angled and more inside, then it's perfect. But people don't know this. They will know it after hunting the map, but I guess nobody will ever hunt your map if the first run already is awkward. And
Yeah.
especially if we are talking about TODD and map review, people only have their first run basically in the 3 minutes
Mhm.
of map review. So it needs to be intuitively, it needs to be understandable, very fast, and it just needs to work. And yeah, I think if you can do a transition that fits into this category, it's fine. There's nothing to avoid. It's just, if it works, it works. If it's super awkward and it works, it just works. The first time I saw this, was it a virtual map? I don't know. Was it Control? Yeah, the black ramp into diagonal bobsleigh. It's like, what the
Mhm.
fuck? Why does this work?
Yeah.
But I mean, it also just does not work for slower players. But that's why it's not a trick of the day. But
Mhm.
that's an amazing transition. I don't know if I would have found this while mapping. This would have been insane. You built this. You're desperate. You're at a point of, yeah, whatever. I just place a bobsleigh block here, knowing that of course it won't work. But then it's just you have this moment of and it works. This is amazing.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I think map review is actually so map review has its problems, but one thing it is really good for is getting first impressions, like you said before. And there have definitely been transitions where I've built where I think they're intuitive. They make so much sense to me, but then I get in the map review room and then no. They
Yeah.
they don't. I'm like,
Yeah.
where are you going? Why
And
are
I
you
mean,
doing this?
sometimes you should not focus on the on the weird people in map review, because that's really a where are you going? Like, what the hell?
Yeah, but there was specifically one transition, and then I think Intax was in the room as well, and Intax typed, and it's just like, what do I do with this transition? And I was just like, oh, okay, maybe I need to change it. Maybe it's not as intuitive as I thought.
Yeah, true. I mean, if you spectate Intex in map review and he doesn't know, then go into editor.
Yeah, yeah. But I
But yeah.
think, especially since you bring up the control example with, because I like you and you saying that you probably would have never found it. Like, even if you did find it, I think it's such a hard transition that you probably would have never actually put it into like, and definitely not like a track of the day map or anything. But is there anything that you do to like control like the difficulty level?
Mm, I usually tend to build less speed checks. I think that's a good thing to do,
Mm-hmm.
because if they work, they are like, yeah, okay, felt good, I guess. But they are super frustrating if you don't pass the speed check. The most basic form would just be a straight into a ramp into a straight that is on the higher block.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're too slow, you just crash against the wall, and yeah, good luck. Try to max the turn before, then the transition is smooth. But not everybody is capable of doing this. So I would probably avoid building stuff that only works for the fast players, or that is really speed checky.
Mm-hmm.
What else to avoid?
So I think for me, something that I've kind of noticed is that the more, I guess, like the more blocks the actual transition uses, because because like you said, the simple one of just like ramp up to higher, like the transition is just like that one ramp piece, whatever you use to be that ramp piece. But I found that even just adding like a second piece to that, let alone like three or four, is just like it adds a lot to the difficulty in terms of just because if you get the wrong bump or something on the first or second block, you still have blocks 3 and 4 to get through, and if you don't enter those in the right area, then you're probably bouncing off of those, and
Yeah,
yeah, there's a lot
it
more that
kind
can
of
go wrong.
ties into the same principle of not having speed checks, which I guess this is not only a speed check but also a pretty hard line check then.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, to just make the transition work for a broader audience, I guess, or for more lines than the perfect optimal line. Then
Yeah.
again, if you are building for World Tour, don't listen to this.
Yeah.
But also, if you're building for World Tour, I guess you don't need a podcast with
Yeah.
me to learn about building transitional. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're honestly, if you're here building for World Tour and you need help, you know what? Just contact me. You know what? It'd be so cool. But I
I can
mean,
give you scenery advice at least.
yeah, I definitely cannot give you scenery advice. Every single one of like I think there was one map that someone dug out when they built in like 2021, sent it back through, got track of the day, and I had literally people adding me, just being like, "Look, this looks like one of your maps." And I was like, "Stop it!" No, I know, I know, I don't build super modern scenery, but yeah, my routes are fun though, right?
Yeah,
But
yes, yes.
yeah.
I'm not getting paid to say that. No, no.
Yeah, uh-huh, uh-huh. But yeah, because I guess just thinking back at the control example, because the technically speaking, it's a simple transition. It's literally just the ramp up to something else, but there's that added airtime that we talked about earlier, and the fact that the quarter pipe, well, kind of like quarter pipe turn, whatever piece, there's a lot of variation between just like your line and angle and
Yeah,
stuff, and it's
I
very
wouldn't say
restrictive.
I wouldn't say it's a simple transition. Like even in this definition, like and perfect. This ties into the stunt discussion as well. like in stunt, you at least in the Trackmania United stunt, you had basically four-ish categories of difficulty or how how much points you will get. You know, you have a basic jump, just jump straight and land, no rotation in any axis gives you least amount of points. If you do a transition only in X, Y, or Z direction, you get more points. Combining X and Y or X and Z or Y and Z gives you even more. And there are the three tricks that focus on featuring all three axes. You know,
Mm-hmm.
doing a roll, doing a spin, and also a flip into certain amounts and blah blah blah, stunt, stunt, stunt. The control transition is also way more complex than your basic jump transition because you're entering from the side, you have a roll, you have a like you're changing the where is which axis. But you know, you're rolling your car, you're flipping your
Mm-hmm.
car, and you're turning your car. And it's also a line check because it only works in a certain direction and at a certain height. So it's I guess a transition only consisting of two blocks, but the car still does a lot of complex stuff.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because I was just thinking about, like airtime and like the number of blocks and that terms of complexity. But yeah, that's a really good way to kind of think about an additional complexity of just like how many axes you're engaging with.
Yeah, and what I find the yeah, I think the hardest, also in stunt, the hardest, but also most interesting kind of transition is like a roll transition where you kind of tilt the car in various forms.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think most of the transitions you see are a variation of a flip, like they are not a full flip, but just jumping off a platform and having your nose dip down. That's a rotation in the flip direction. It's
Mm-hmm.
just 10 degrees or so, but you're rotating the car forward. But it's not that easy to roll your car sideways. So I feel those are pretty interesting. Like, for example, try to imagine going off a slope platform downward and you're jumping off the left edge, steering to the left. So your car will do a spin about like 45 degrees to the left and also a roll so you can land in another slope block that goes perpendicular down from the slope you started on.
Mm-hmm.
Like stuff like this, it's kind of hard to imagine because it's a podcast, but just
Yeah.
imagine two perpendicular slopes placed 90 degrees turned. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a way of making this smooth. And I think this is the art of building transitional, like having those weird transitional or those weird looking stuff um, feel good by having good setup and having a good exit and feeling like this feeling of huh? How
Yeah.
did I get here? What? Okay, I guess I am driving on this part of the road now. Okay,
You're
that
like,
worked.
wait, that actually felt smooth.
Yeah, that felt smooth. Exactly. This
Mm-hmm.
it's just feeling. Transitional is just feeling. This felt smooth. This felt right. This felt intuitive and flowy. This is kind of the essence to it. I feel like.
Yeah, and I'm reminded of a map that was submitted for viewer map review. I think this was like way back when I first started doing it. And it was they wanted it to be a transitional map, but they couldn't figure out like why they weren't working. But it was a map that literally after every single transition, there were like two or three boosters to get the player back up to speed of what they wanted, because every single transition just halted the car, like all the car's momentum. And it's like it's something that, I've kept in mind of actually, just like when you're building a transition, like do you feel like you need something extra to get the car back to where you want it? Or well, because if you do, then that's probably a sign that the transition isn't as smooth or flowy as you initially think it might be. And I'll just
Yeah.
think about that
Or
map
you.
every once in a while.
I mean, we can look at it after this and
Oh no, it's long gone.
try to make it work.
But no, it's just like the boosters after every single transition, and it's just like, yeah, these transitions are rough. I mean, not that there's not the space for that, obviously. Like what's funnier than watching people flip over during Bonk Cup and then raging because they can't drive anymore.
I mean, you just build sort of the track structure of a trial map, somehow get to checkpoint, reset speed to 0, get up to speed, do next transition.
Yeah, there you go. Mm-hmm.
Just see it as a trial map attempt.
That's fair. That's fair. I didn't think about it like that. So
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
okay, I'll build a trial map for track of the day next. I'm sure that'll go
We'll
over
see
well.
under the chat.
But I guess the last thing I kind of want to cover is like more general advice, and I have a couple things in mind in terms of like when you're first getting started, like when you're still trying when you're just trying to wrap your head around like what transitions are, what makes them good, what makes them feel smooth in the first place. uh do you have, well, I guess, should I ask? Nah, I'll just go ahead and say what I was but because there's the Ski Freaks website. I think he has like a GitHub website where he has a transition bank of
Mhm.
pictures and stuff of like people have submitted or whatever, of like a bunch of different transitions to different surfaces and all that stuff. And honestly, if someone's asking me for transitional help, I'll just link that site,
Mhm.
and I'll put it in the description down below so people, I think it'll be like the third or fourth time that site's been linked in one of my descriptions. It's useful. But I mean, do you have any like tips or something that you remember when you were first trying to figure this stuff out?
Mm, I mean, it's like a cheat code, so somehow. But yeah, I think it comes back at one of your earlier questions, or my answer to it, of what you want to achieve when playing. If you have a deadline of building a transitional map until tomorrow and you are halfway done and you need to find good stuff, then I guess go ahead. There's nothing wrong with just copying, basically, because
Mm-hmm.
the I mean, not copying everything, but the core idea of a transition. Because the setup and the exit will probably be different. The flow of the map will be different. Just having this one solution to, I'm here, I want to get there, I don't know how, I tried so much, then I guess look it up. It works. It helps speed up the process, but I don't want to speed up my process. I, for this reason, don't try to take on projects with a deadline. I enjoy not being stuck, but finding the solution after being stuck, because it's so much more rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I also learn more by doing stuff myself, and trying to find all those little interesting sometimes awkward and weird transitions, and also deleting them and knowing, okay, if I am at the same height, at the same tilt, and at the same rotation, but with 20 speed less, this works. Just having this at the back of your mind just basically broadens your internal transition bank that you can use on future maps. And I I just built a route for a different map where from the moment I placed the start block, I knew I want to get into, I don't know, low third gear and penalty grass, and I want to build this transition. And I struggled to do this. I built the whole route not being able to be at 200 speed on penalty grass, and never built a transition, but I still have in the back of my mind, I want to build this eventually, sometimes, somewhere, and it will be awesome. And I think with stuff like this in the back of your head, it helps your creativity and it helps you discover new stuff. And for me, it's all about discovering new stuff. I try to set the goal of at least one element in the track that I have not seen anywhere else. Just as, I don't know, it kind of motivates me to have stuff that I have the feeling of I found this myself.
Yeah, and that's super rewarding too when you see it and it actually works.
Yeah, and I guess I could build, starting now until a couple of hours, I could build you a kind of TUTD like map that is sorta calculated and kinda works, but I would get no joy out of that.
Yeah, it'd be a little boring. Just kind of like one of those maps you just like, okay, here you go, and you just never really think about it again.
Yeah, then place some macro block scenery around it and give it a translation of green as a name, and then there you go.
Yeah. Yep, there we go. Boom. Easy track of the day.
Yeah.
But
and I guess there's also nothing wrong with this if that's your approach, and if you want to, it's also a good way to learn, I guess. Just build stuff, just build stuff and finish projects and build the next thing. But yeah, as I said, I take my time to build more interesting stuff, or stuff that I find interesting. It's not that it's really interesting, but I build for this moment of, oh, that worked.
Yeah, and I guess that's that because for me, I kind of learn by I find that I learn the quickest when someone kind of like holds my hand for like the first maybe like example or two and then just lets me kind of explore from there. And so for me, the transition bank and like building a couple tracks that kind of like used a lot of transitions from the transition bank with that hand holding and then letting me explore afterwards, like that really helped me kind of get the idea around of like why these transitions worked and like what the geometry and shape of the block, like how that helps, how that sets certain things up. But I think one thing is like I keep getting comments of just like, oh, how do I do this, or how do I do something else like this? And I think the big thing that people are missing, and it's probably not the answer that they're looking for, but like you have to struggle. Like it's just how you get better, like there's no like just shortcut of just like, oh, if you tap dance while you're mapping, then all the ideas will just flow and everything will just work together. And it's just like, no, you gotta make stuff that sucks.
Yep.
There's no shortcut. I'm so sorry. Even if you're tap dancing while mapping.
I mean, maybe that is the shortcut. I don't know. I haven't tried.
Oh, I mean, same here. I just kind of assumed, but I could be wrong.
Guys, feedback us in the comments, please.
Yeah, have you tried tap dancing while mapping, and has it fixed all of your problems? And yeah, I honestly that's the biggest thing though is you have to struggle, which honestly that's a large reason why my channel mascot is the struggle bus is because like it's important. You have to struggle sometimes. There's no way around it, even if it
Yeah.
sucks.
I mean, we could pathetically tie this into a larger learning lesson for life now, but we can also just imagine how this conversation
No, unfortunately, I do have other things I have to do today, so we can't go into a larger lecture on the meaning of life and learning.
Yeah, let your next guest do this.
Yeah, but yeah, speaking of that, so do you have anything else before we start really wrapping things up? Is there anything else you wanted to cover? Any points you felt like there was something else we could talk about?
No, no. I think we've covered a bunch of interesting stuff. I know that how stuff always works. The moment I leave this call, I know what I would have wanted to talk about.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. But for the most part, feel pretty good about everything that
Yeah,
we
yeah,
covered.
that's good.
Perfect. Okay. So, but for now, for the real reason that you're here, is there any self-advertising you would like to do? Any like do you have any socials, any projects you want people to look at?
I don't have any socials for my Trackmania, um, but I have a TMX page. I think you may have stumbled across some of those tracks. And since this is a podcast about how to build transitional, I would suggest you guys play my NASCAR tracks.
Yeah, there we go. I yeah,
Just-
I know I said earlier NASCAR isn't my favorite, but I think I can refine that statement. NASCAR for me is fun to play. I like playing NASCAR. I don't like hunting
oh,
NASCAR.
PB hunting was a pain. Oh god, I'm so happy. I'm so happy dopamine helped us. So at least I didn't have to feel so bad about the worst possible PB crawling there like a snake around the corners.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, yeah. I mean, lately I kind of diverged from my focus on being transitional. I mean, that's most of the time still the core of the route itself, but I find a lot of joy in building very intricate sceneries nowadays. So
Yeah,
I guess if you guys want to see a pretty okay transitional map with good scenery, I guess.
good
look,
scenery. I'd
look,
say
look at
some of
this.
the best scenery the game has to offer, but okay.
Thank you. Some scenery that follows design principles and thus works, I guess.
Yeah, no, if you want a good example on what to do with scenery, Squeagle's definitely got some really good maps to take a look at. And honestly, even if you haven't gotten out of your way to play Squeagle maps, you probably have just with like track of the day and stuff like that.
Yeah, I had quite a few track of the days actually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, like I don't know, like 14 or so. But yeah,
Oh wow. Yeah, that
maybe
is quite
less,
a
maybe
lot.
more, maybe 12, maybe 15.
Oh, somewhere around there.
I'm not
Somewhere around
sure.
there.
I'm not sure.
Too many accolades to count, honestly. But so yeah, we'll definitely a link to your TMX page will definitely be in the description down
Noise.
below. So yeah, click that. Drive some Squeagle maps. They're fun. They're good. And is there anything else you'd like to any last minute anythings?
Uh, yeah, guys, enjoy the journey. I guess it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Just stay patient.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that really is just the biggest tip of just like, don't put so much stress on yourself. Remember to have fun.
Yeah, it's still a it's still creative, you know. There's no quick solution, and it's just um, being patient until you are happy with yourself.
Hmm. And I mean, at the end of the day, it is a video game. It was designed to have fun with. All right. With that, I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. I'll do my self-advertising later. I'm not gonna make Squeagle sit through my own self-advertising. I feel like that'd be a little rude, but thank you, Squeagle, for coming on, talking for about an hour and a half about transitional and NASCAR and all that good stuff.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thanks for the opportunity. I know there are a lot of people who I think build very more interesting transitional stuff. But, it's nice to be picked and to be your guest.
Yeah, guys, I will say, because TM 2020 was my first game, first track, not game ever, but first Trackmania title. And when I started in 2021, and I started really heavily playing in 2022, I think like you had a couple track of the day maps at that point, and so
Mhm.
you were immediately on my radar of just like, okay, this guy builds good maps. Of just because like they stood out, especially with like the heavy transitional, and as I wanted to build that more. So
Mhm.
at the risk of embarrassing you a little bit, when I first got the idea of this like podcast and stuff like that, I was like, I really hope Squeagle accepts the transitional episode. Because I've been like playing your maps for like literally years at this point, so it's honestly, it's great to have you here. It was fun.
It was fun for me as well. Thank you.
And now it's time for my own self-advertising. If you guys enjoyed that episode and want to see more, don't forget to leave a like. Trackmania mapping is pretty much all I do here, so if that interests you, subscribe as well. I stream over on Twitch where I do a variety of things ranging from viewer map review to tournaments. If that sounds interesting, make sure to follow me over there. And also join my Discord where you can learn more about these various events, including mapping competitions. We have quite a few things happening, and it's always fun to see new faces pop up. All right, I think that's all of the self-advertising out of the way. I'd like to give one last thank you to Squeagle for coming on, and a reminder that a link to his TMX page will be at the top of the description below. There's one more thank you to say, and that's to you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to my podcast. I really do appreciate it. And if you'll excuse me, it's time to step off the struggle bus and make a transition so cool no one would ever want to steal it from me. I just gotta open the door, and it's a little stuck. It's not opening. I just gotta go out. Oh no, I can't go back out there. I can't leave the struggle bus. Why?